Oh. Oh, no. Too many concurrent sessions. Oh, we're live, guys. We're live straight away. It's just taken us live straight away. Welcome to TSK, guys. We're live. Welcome. Didn't realise we were live. Sorry about that. I was fiddling around and didn't realise we were live. Welcome to the show. We're going to talk about a little bit of Zandvoort stuff and what happened there. And we're also then going to look into a bit of Monza and what we think is going to happen there. Don't forget to have a little chat and things like that. Let me just check that we're actually live and stuff, because I actually, okay, we're good. We're live. All right. Well, we'll start and we'll continue and we'll do the thing. So we'll start with Zandvoort stuff because we're a little bit late, so we'll get into it. Harry, I wanted to talk about Max and the fact he just looked mega dominant again. Like, do you think the title's his? Do you think he can be beaten? I think it was just before, wasn't it? hmm Is it over 100 points, his lead now? It's it's like you said last season. There was sort of I think at one point Lewis was quite far behind. I don't think he was quite this far behind, but yeah, there was always that thought, that Lewis could get back into it, right? But that there isn't that, is there? The media were trying to sort of package Leclerc as that this seat, but is I actually saw a post earlier. I don't know who it was from, but it pictured Perez, Leclerc, and Russell, and it just said the fight for second. Like, but it's a yeah. So, like, do you think the title's basically his at this point? It's his to lose, right? Yeah. No, and we'll come on to that winning a race thing soon because Benotto's been talking again, how he does. But I wanted to come to you, John, with Russell in second. I found that pretty impressive, and also the call he made, because he made the call, didn't he? From I'm a firm believer that we only get broadcast what we get broadcast. There's a lot more said, but it certainly was packaged like George made that call specifically. He made that choice. Like, what did you think to Russell this weekend and in making that call? And one moment, one moment, I've messed up. We are live.
Two subscribers only.
I don't know if they can hear
They
us.
can't.
I don't know.
They can hear you now. So we've just wasted that whole beginning bit, but never mind. It's
We
all
go again.
Oh,
technical.
We go again.
we're learning.
We go
We're
again.
learning.
We go again.
We go again. We'll cut that. But okay, so we'll do that bit quickly again. We'll do that bit
Yeah.
quickly again. With
Okay.
with Max winning, we'll go back to you, Harry, with it. With Max winning, he's dominant, isn't he? And can you see anyone else winning or anything this season with Max Verstappen?
Yeah, so two things again. So I think one, the car's incredible and only getting stronger. Obviously, with him in it, even better. And two, he's got no competition. You know, Lewis isn't there, Charles isn't there. Even if he was, Ferrari wouldn't let him be there. So it's
No.
like from now until the end of the season, I can't see anyone else even having a go at him for a win. Never mind
It's
take the title off him. So
I know we just
yeah,
said this, but it is pretty much his to lose at this point, isn't it? Like,
yeah,
apart from the very beginning of the season, that Red Bull looks fairly bulletproof too. Like he had a gearbox fail on Friday at Zandvoort, and
yeah,
I actually wasn't aware of a separate allocation of gearboxes. I actually didn't realise they have a Friday allocation, well, unallocated set of gearboxes, and
yeah.
that's what that gearbox was. So he was fine.
I think actually, which is quite funny, last year at Zandvoort in the same practice session, Lewis's gearbox went.
Oh, really?
I believe so. Yeah,
Oh.
I believe so.
I didn't realise that. I didn't realise
Not like it means anything, but it's just a bit, spooky.
It is a bit crazy, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I know you guys have heard me pose this question to John already, but we'll get his answer about Russell being impressive, coming second at Zandvoort, continuing really what has been a really good sort of season so far for Mercedes, and making that pit call. What did you think in general to that?
Well, like I previously said, no, the pit call. I always feel like George Russell knows exactly where he is in a Grand Prix. That sounds silly, but I mean, I always feel like he knows exactly where his tyres are, the temperatures, how the car feels in that exact moment. And he's made, unless it's just luck, but that call that he made at the weekend, he was very, very adamant. He was adamant that call was being made. And he wasn't having I'm thinking the tyres are feeling a bit like this. Tyres are going off, I want them tyres now.
Yeah, was it a tyre temperature thing that he was on? Like, he couldn't keep hold of the tyres?
Yeah, he seemed to think he couldn't, whether they switched off and he was trying to get them switched back on, or whether they just fell out of the window because of the safety car, etc. I don't know, but he was just adamant that, get me on softs, I need softs. And I was just really impressed with that. And I was saying, I saw a graphic the other day on one of the F1 channels, and it showed that I think when he's finished, he's never finished outside the top 5. He's had 6 podiums. It's in that car. I'm thinking, I'm sure it's 6 podiums, might be 5, but in that car, it's impressive. He's up against. I know they were mucking about with parts early in the season and all the rest of it, but he is Mr. Consistent,
Yeah.
And I think, I'm impressed with him. Really, I'm more impressed with him than I thought I would be, and we're probably seeing a bit more of him because he's in a Mercedes. Like what he's talking about to the teams, etc.
Yeah.
Feedback to the pit wall, etc. But I'm impressed with him.
Zandvoort made me think of him. I might get the race wrong, but qualifying at Canada, where he put slicks on, and he got it wrong. Was that Canada?
Canada. Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys have listened to the George Russell Beyond the Grid podcast, which is fantastic. Yeah. He is asked if he would do that again, and he basically says yes. Like, you're there to not so much take risks, but get the maximum and do what you think is the maximum. So yes, he would rather take the risk.
Yeah.
And
rather than gain nothing.
Yeah.
At all.
And now I'm literally having this chat. It's just made me think of that. He's literally in that moment gone, that's the choice here. That's the choice here. And I'm wondering, this is a wider question that I'd not even thought of. Does this, like Hamilton, he was known as a bit of a maverick and a risk taker, and he was quick and aggressive at first in Formula One. Do you think sort of how George Russell is, how Max Verstappen is, because Red Bull roll the dice a lot. They're very quick to make a choice on stuff generally, and they get it right a lot of the time. Do you think it's kind of like a new breed of Formula One driver, where they're less conservative maybe, or do you think maybe they're not jaded by Formula One yet, so they just go for it? Like, Obviously, Lewis is a lot older, isn't he? So maybe he's like, no, let's.
Yeah, I think it's probably I think it is a generational thing. Actually, if I'm honest with you, I think it is because Hamilton came through with drivers where you felt. I know they do feel blessed to be one of the top 20 drivers in F1, but I mean, I think Hamilton, when he came through, very much didn't think he didn't feel like he belonged there naturally. Where I think these guys have almost slipped in there and like they've started. I mean, Norris, he started off with McLaren, didn't he? So, but I think he was with the team a season before, wasn't he? Just standing around the guard, etc. And Russell was obviously at Williams helping develop a car again at the back of a grid. So maybe they do feel naturally just far more confident in making. I mean, Norris made a call which was wrong as well, didn't he? Which cost them a race win.
Russia, yeah, in the rain.
Yeah, and it haunts him. Yeah, again on that podcast, it haunts him. But he just felt at the time he was making the right decision, and it is a flip of a dice on where you are on the track, what the weather's doing. Sometimes you can't possibly get it right.
No,
being the first person on the track. But yeah, I do think they are a slightly different breed. I'm not sure Verstappen. I don't hear him make calls much. Actually, Verstappen.
No,
I can't recall.
They have a different.
But then again,
Red Bull seem to have a different communication structure to Mercedes, though. Like,
yeah, definitely.
He'll say something, they'll say something, and if he disagrees, he's very clear on his no, or everything's out. But then when they tend to make a call, I could be wrong. I don't really recall Max really being like no. Like we have heard Lewis
disagreeing with them. Yeah,
we've heard Lewis do that. I'm trying to think of an instance where Max Verstappen has very literally been like no.
I don't think he has. There's not many drivers that do that. Sainz is known for doing it as well a lot. Obviously, Ferrari don't really care.
I mean, we're gonna look at Ferrari and we're gonna chat about Ferrari. But I mean, if you drove for Ferrari, everything they radioed you and said, Harry, box, you'd go, no, let's do it in 10 laps for the other tyre. Whatever you're saying, it's wrong. We'll do the other thing.
I do think that. I think. You're right with the processes at Red Bull. I think what they do is they have an amazing strategy team. In fact, I think they're split strategy teams. And I think what they do is ask him a whole host of questions. How's this feeling? How's that feeling? Blah, blah, blah. And he just gives them direct feedback and then they put it through a computer and that's it.
Probably.
That's how their strategy goes. But
probably.
You never know, do you? You never know.
No. And let's move on to Leclerc. Now, I actually thought he didn't do that great in he didn't really do much in the race. Like, Ferrari all season has been, well, at one point seen as the fastest car. I always thought the Red Bull, even right in the beginning when Ferrari came with pace, I think Red Bull, I think they're going to be on there, and they have been. But I didn't think he really met his potential with being in third this weekend. What do you think, Harry? I just didn't think he lit the world alight.
I don't know if we discussed about talking about this, but a lot of his good fortune at coming third was Mercedes down. It was there. I think that's where that comes from, because I think both Mercedes were faster than both Ferraris last weekend. I don't think he probably deserved that, but that it's racing, isn't it? What happened with the multiple VSCs and safety car, that you can't control that. No. So they just made the best of a bad situation for them, especially, Sainz, whether he finished 8th in the end, but
something like that, yeah.
I don't think he had the pace. Did he?
Yeah, he got punished, didn't he?
Did he qualify second, Leclerc?
Yeah, it was Max, Leclerc, Sainz, within a tenth of Max.
Yeah.
But that's not bad, but again, I think the Mercedes might have been in the mix had Perez not spun it. I think they might have been up there, even maybe a pole shout. I'm not too sure.
I think Toto was bigging it up a bit much, because anyway, the mini sectors didn't say it, but we'll see.
Yeah, and anyhow, I think they were fortunate on multiple occasions this weekend. But third, everyone's been fortunate this season. George has only got most of his podiums. Lewis has got his podiums from misfortunes from Ferrari or Red Bull. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't. Oh no, go on.
I was just saying, looking ahead to this weekend, I can't see anything improving in that sense. But yeah,
I don't seem to trust the qualifying process this season, because unless you're in a Red Bull, even when you're in a Red Bull, it doesn't. The outcome of your race car doesn't seem to be
Yeah,
It
good
doesn't
point.
seem to be. There's not like a parallel
Well,
between like. So you're seeing a fast Ferrari. I thought, oh, they're closer than I thought actually, and then come race
I,
times.
I was doing the watch long and I didn't bring it up as a thing, right? But we used to hear people like Jenson Button used to say about the race pace a lot because he really liked a balanced car, so he might not qualify all that well. Alonso's one, not the best qualifier in the world, but his racing is still elite. You know, like his race pace is still elite.
It's craft.
But this season, we're really seeing, apart from the Red Bull, really, the Ferrari over one lap. Rubber dinghy rapids. Like, it's nearly on with the Red... I mean, if it wasn't for Max, they'd probably take pole every race.
Yeah.
But then, race pace, it goes non-existent. But then you've got Mercedes the other way. They're not qualifying great and haven't really, by their standards, all season. They just haven't. But their race pace, even when they weren't doing great, I could look at them early season like, they've got a race car there. But
Yeah.
I wonder whether it's... We've heard about the tyre heating on the Mercedes, for example. I wonder if it's whether they can't switch on the tyres quick enough. Whereas the Ferrari brings them into the window really quick. Sainz was screaming about tyre deg this weekend. So maybe they're just harder on the tyres. And the Mercedes, how long did Russell and Lewis go on those mediums? That first stint, it seemed like forever, didn't it?
Well,
But
they'd have been one stopping all day long if they want anything else. So, yeah, that shows you, doesn't it? And I don't think anyone else could have done that. So,
no, it was a bit crazy. But what I wanted to talk about as well was Ferrari. And they're just plethora of mistakes, John. Just like,
Oh,
I
where do you
mean,
start?
all sorts of stuff. But I couldn't believe again that they boxed Sainz and just didn't have the wit. Like, it wasn't even that rushed, but they still only had 3 wheels there. It wasn't like he'd come in unannounced. They told him to box and then was like, "Oh, we need 4 wheels for a car." Like,
This has happened before. I even remember the commentary moments with like Murray Walker and Martin Brundle. So Murray Walker's days, I remember him saying, "Oh, we've just parked the car and I'm waiting for my third tyre to, and stuff like that." And it was always a Ferrari, and I don't understand why you would neglect that part. Because other than race pace, pit stops is the most important part of any race, isn't it? It's like you could. That's where you can undercut.
you can win or
all the
lose a
rest of
race
it.
in the pits.
yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And I don't know, Sainz. I do seem to think that Sainz seems to have had the worst, unless it's like I don't want to be making up. Well, I will make up a little conspiracy theory. Actually, I think Sainz seems to get far worse treatment in the pit lane than his teammate.
I mean, there is something I'd love. I've realised there aren't many people in, but I'd love chat to get involved on this bit because we've noticed that Sainz just gets left on his jacks, and it's happened at multiple races where the mechanics tyres on, guns away.
Oh,
and he's just sat there for 1 or 2 seconds. And look, I'm not a Ferrari fan. I don't care what Ferrari do. But every time I remember this happening, it's when Sainz is just in front of Leclerc. Every
there's
time.
a chance of it. Yeah,
Every time.
It's like they feel like they're back in the day where you're not allowed to say if a driver's number 1 or 2 type thing, but they're trying to make it obvious on television. Like they've done it. They did it to Vettel. Most definitely did it to Vettel.
Yes.
And they had there was internal issues going on there anyway because of the whole number situation and that when they removed his name from his gear he was wearing and all the rest of it. But he was definitely abused in the pit lane whenever he was, and it just seems so strange. But unless it's just luck.
What happened at Silverstone? I can't remember because obviously Sainz won the race, but I know they were battling each other. They were crossing each other time, but I can't remember whether they tried to screw him or not.
Well, they did. Yeah, they were trying to get him to back up the pack to give Leclerc a chance of an overtake, and he said no.
That's it. What happened to Leclerc then? Did he have trouble? I can't remember what happened to Leclerc. Anyway,
Can't remember.
He was definitely getting shafted, even, and he still won the race. So
Yeah,
it's a shame. It's a shame because I don't think he's. I mean, early season he didn't perform too great, but I think he's got as much pace as Charles in that car.
I think, yeah, and you could say about other teams where they favour a driver, but I think most would agree if a team is going to favour a driver, it's Ferrari.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel like they would favour Leclerc over almost anyone at the moment because of contract and stuff like that. But yeah, it's basically saying Charles is number one driver without saying it on the radio. Basically, Andy, that's how I feel about it as well. So, Harry, I wanted to ask you, Lewis and Mercedes at Zandvoort, is anyone at fault for that? Like, ranting aside, because they all rant, so I don't really care that he lost it for a minute. All of them do that. But is there any room to apportion blame? Because George made that call and then Lewis didn't. And
well, at the time, I was very much of the opinion that it was the team's fault.
Right.
And I'm still of the same opinion because everyone knows whoever's leading in F1 in the team makes the call. Regardless if they make the call or not. And I think there's a couple of different scenarios that could have happened. So if Lewis, they obviously wanted to go for the win, obviously. So they kept Lewis out on the used tyre. So if they're going for that, you've got to focus all your efforts there. So they should have said to George, no, you've got to stay and protect Lewis from Max. Obviously, I've since heard that Lewis was in the wrong engine mode on the restart.
Oh, really?
I've heard that. Not sure there's any legitimacy in that, but I've heard that. Obviously, they didn't do that, so that was out the window. By the time they'd got to the start-finish line, pretty much. And then obviously George switched, which means that Lewis finished fourth because on the used tyre. I think they should have pitted them both because they could have done that, and they'd have at best got second and third. That's the way I see it.
Like,
and I can see why Lewis is mad because he's gone from a position where he should have probably won the race to finishing fourth.
I understand the frustration from Lewis's part on that basis. Like, he thought it was finally time, didn't he? He thought it was... And really, how things had gone pre-VSCs and stuff like that, I was really excited because I thought Mercedes had just played a blinder with tactics and they'd really nailed it. And I thought, honestly, Lewis was going to win that. But I'm still 50-50 on it because it felt to me that Lewis was partly frustrated with himself and partly with the team. And I feel like maybe they didn't furnish him with all the information they maybe could have.
Yeah.
And I can't get away from the fact that Russell made the call.
But Russell made the call, it's fine. But if Mercedes wanted to keep Lewis out and go for it, they should have left George out there. I don't see why you wouldn't do that. But if you wanted to consolidate second and third, which is still better than second and fourth, they should have brought them both in for softs. It's
a strange one, isn't it? Because I wonder, we actually just mentioned about the lack of Max saying no, but we've heard Lewis saying no before. Do you think they were maybe avoiding that kind of situation where they're like, box, and they didn't have much time and they didn't want that dialogue with Lewis in that short time? I'm just...
Potentially. But I think if they'd both stayed out anyway and gone for the win, I think what would have happened is the same result, but Lewis had been second, George had been fourth. That's what I think would have happened. That's why I think that they should have just boxed them both. But yeah, you're right. That could have happened. But how would you know? You can't not ask the question because of fear of getting the wrong answer, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's a weird one. The thing is, George has made that decision himself, and he's got the jump on Lewis. That's why Lewis is whinging. I think George has done amazing there. You know, if Bottas done something like that and took him, they would go mental, wouldn't they?
I'm not taking anything away from George because it's fantastic. And why wouldn't a hungry driver like that, who's been in a shitbox for the last how many years, want to do that? He don't care. He don't care who is in the other car. But as the team, for the team points, second, they should have gone right. No, we're doing this. We're going for the win here, or we're going to consolidate second and third, which is better.
Could they not have pitted both of them?
Yeah,
they could have. Yeah, they could have.
If Lewis made the decision, I'm sure they would have.
Yeah, but I think Lewis was waiting for them to go. Yeah,
it's a difficult one because obviously, I don't know. respect is probably the word, Lewis. Like, I'm not a fan, but like I totally respect him. And to me, it seems like in certain situations, he doesn't make that choice. You know what I mean? And then it's happened. It has happened a few times now. Not well. I mean, I suppose to detriment, but yeah, it's just that was kind of my observation earlier with George. And is it like a new breed of driver where they'll just be like, go, risk, let's do it, go. You know,
it's hard because I think what you said earlier, like they probably had a strategy on that at some point in some meeting before the race to say, don't worry, Lewis, we'll make the call for it. We'll tell you what the deal is. That might not have been the case, but I can see that. I can see them saying that to him and say, listen, we'll tell you what's going on.
Yeah.
You get on with it. Because they did that. It was again at Russia where he wanted to stay out and they didn't let him. So yeah. I can't see them not asking because of fear for the answer. But anyway. I'd
love to see the full transcript of radio messages at exactly that time, and whether his engineer said to us, "George just came in," or whether they just said, "Don't tell him, just don't tell him," until he sees him in his wing mirror.
Because what happened was, I think the safety car came out, went past the pits once, and then they came past the pits again, but went through the pits, and that's when George stopped. So Lewis could have stopped the first time, couldn't he?
George literally said, as he was entering the pits behind Latifi, was it? He was like, box me now, box me now.
He was like, we went up to him, didn't he? He's like, come on.
Yeah.
He's like, great from George. Move.
You can't take anything away from George because it's fantastic. And I think it's, he qualified 6th, did he? So to 2nd, it's great. So I hope he continues. And to be fair, I'd like to see George win a race this year as well. So hopefully that happens.
Because of time, we'll just move on really quickly, John. I'd seen, I've forgotten what place he's finished, but Perez, I found him largely disappointing when you've got your teammate dominating in the way that Max is. Now, I was aware he was running a completely different floor because they're trying to help him out. But Perez, really, you expect, if you've got someone like Max, I mean, really, I don't want to use the Mercedes sort of example, but you do want a Bottas, you do want a Rosberg, you want that driver there. And Perez, he's had some results, but you'd think with how dominant Max is, that Perez would be closer, wouldn't you? He just seems to be having a bit of a time of it. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he won at Monaco, didn't he? And that was when I kind of thought, well, here we go. This could actually give Red Bull a few problems. And I think he was just signing a contract there, wasn't he? Just before that.
Just before, yeah.
And I thought, wait a minute, he's just signed a contract. He maybe finally thinks, well, I've signed a contract, so I can go for this. I can have a go at him because I've got a contract under my belt. So that's what I thought. It's not happened since then. It just seems to have, he just doesn't, the car, he doesn't have probably the same amount of control. I don't know. The car's obviously been built around the world champion.
Yeah.
For probably a good few seasons, hasn't it, when they've developed it. And then the style of this car that they've brought out is obviously suits Verstappen down to the ground and doesn't, well, it obviously suits Perez around a slightly slower speed track, but not at any of the others. And I don't know, I think, he finished 5th, didn't he? At the weekend. And I don't know, I think that is poor, but behind 2 Mercedes and one of the Ferraris, you expect him to be up on the podium, don't you?
You'd expect him to be up around there, at least giving the Ferraris a bother in or the Mercedes, but he didn't seem to have much most of the day for me in watching it. And I just found it disappointing.
18 seconds behind.
Yeah.
I think he'd have finished 6th, wouldn't he, if Sainz didn't get his penalty?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, good point.
Yeah, he would have, because he got a 5-second pen, didn't he?
I'm already wondering, who they're going to replace him with, honestly, unless he really...
Yeah.
Because they're vicious at Red Bull. The lucky Max is being so dominant. If Max wasn't being so dominant, I bet it would already be in the conversation. Because
of the constructors.
Yeah.
It will be anyway. I mean, the way that they'll look at it is Checo didn't have a drive, did he?
No.
And they've kind of got probably a slightly cheaper, more experienced driver than they would usually stick in. Well, actually, maybe not cheaper because they'd probably bring someone through from their academy or whatever, but they've got an experienced driver in there. And deal-wise, they're sorted, because it's kind of like, well, you're lucky to get a drive, pal. You know what I mean? You're in a Red Bull. Do your worst type thing. But yeah, I think he will be replaced. I'm not sure who by whom. I'm not sure if Gasly's probably blown his chance with Red Bull or whatever. I don't know, but
we'll come on to Gasly in a second.
but
Dan
Perez, yeah, he's not good enough.
in chat saying Perez has been poor for a few races now. It's like his head has gone. It's a bit weird, isn't it? It's a bit weird. You'd think you'd be relishing the challenge. You'd think as a racing driver you'd be all over it. I'm sure he is trying. I mean, when you're talking, I mean, we're not going to have a conversation about him because I don't think we need to, but when you're talking about a driver's head's gone, you only have to look at Danny Rick, don't you? His head has firmly gone.
Just quickly on the Perez situation, if you look at, like, when Hamilton has obviously been dominant and his like Bottas, for example, imagine being in that camp but being the second best and always being the second best and you're the team that's always winning. It's really hard for you to keep, you know what, I'm up for this. How can you be when you're getting smashed by your teammate every week? And he's getting all the applause. So I don't know.
I did, seeing as you've just said about Gasly, I just really quickly, because it's not in my sort of running order, if you like, really quickly want to just say what I've seen lately on driver moves and what they're on about driver moves. They're obviously trying to get the super license for Colton Herta to come over from America to get into the AlphaTauri. I think it is stupid that they won't just grant him one. I think it's something like 64 races and he's won 7 of them in IndyCar. And he's done more open wheel races than Max Verstappen did, and Max Verstappen got into F1.
Yeah,
you know,
it's
silly.
Definitely it's a silly club.
Is that because he's not come through the official route?
Yeah, you have to come through like FIA stuff, and I think it's stupid. Colton Herta does look like he's got promise. I've seen odd bits of IndyCar, and he does look like he's got promise. He definitely should be able to get a super license. I don't think there's any question of that. Is racing IndyCar, which it's not Formula One, but you know, it's fairly top level open wheel. You know, like is qualified. You know, but they're on about him to AlphaTauri, and if that can work, Gasly to Alpine. Was it Alpine? Yes.
Yeah.
But also Ocon wants Mick Schumacher at Alpine.
I know why he wants Mick Schumacher there.
Because he's easy.
Yeah, because he can establish himself as number one better.
Probably.
Gasly comes in, he's number one.
Yeah, but I suppose, like you said earlier in the season, because, I mean, you know, I rate Gasly, but you literally went to me, what's he done? Like, he's been rubbish this season.
But, yeah, I think Ocon sees that more of a challenge than Schumacher.
It'd be interesting. It would be. I'd like to see Schumacher in a competitive car, just to see, but, you know, I'm biased, I am a fan of his, but, and then Giovinazzi seems bang on for Mick Schumacher's seat in the Haas. I cannot fathom it. I don't get it at all.
Oh, Gio.
I don't.
Ferrari, isn't he?
I don't yeah, but I mean,
Ferrari is a genius. You wait and see. He is a genius. You eat your words.
In all seriousness, I feel like the Ferrari Driver Academy must have someone more suited than Giovinazzi to put in that seat.
The Bergamo Bullet. That's what they call him. The Bergamo Bullet. They love him.
To be honest with you, I think Haas have got it all wrong. Because I think if anyone's getting punted from Haas, it should be K-Mac. And I'm only saying that because he had a great start to the season, but he's done nothing since.
I mean,
and he's no direction for the team, is he? He's not going to be there much longer.
He's got another season, hasn't he?
Is he going to get another drive? Probably not. So why not just get, you know?
I felt bad for Schumacher this weekend. Qualified right up there, and then he got absolutely leathered in the pits by him, didn't he? The front jack just didn't work twice and just dropped him down. And then obviously
Did we get them from Ferrari as well? The Haas buy them from Ferrari.
Well, there you go. And then Piastri to McLaren. I suppose that's big news. Now, I've said this. I genuinely think that McLaren have the best future driver lineup on the grid now. Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri is obscene. Like, as a driver pairing, going 5 to 7 years in the future, that is stupid as a driver pairing. And there isn't, like, you can take Red Bull you've only got Max Verstappen because Perez isn't going to be there. Who's going to replace Perez? I can't think of a name. Probably, maybe, if he continues to do well, Jack Doohan, maybe. But, I mean, there are other names for Red Bull. But Mercedes have got some names, but not as anyone as hot as Piastri coming through to replace Lewis one day. And, you know.
Yeah. I'm not sure about it myself.
No?
I just think for Piastri, I think he'd be better in the Alpine because there's a lot of expectation on him in that McLaren to perform.
I don't know.
More than the Alpine. That's my view on it, and I think he'll find it easy to establish himself against Ocon. That's just my opinion on that.
I think it'd beat an Ocon.
Exactly. That's why I think it's better for him being in there because he gets to be the number one driver. Where if he's second fiddle to Lando, which is very easy, almost certainly going to happen. It's very. Do you know what I mean? It's different. I mean,
his CV is unreal though. Coming into Formula One, it is unreal.
Yeah. I'm not doubting
McLaren wants someone to push Lando because undoubtedly he is their future Lando. Yeah. They are building a car with him in mind because he's been successful. I know Rick got a win, didn't he? But I think Lando kind of believes he should have got that win anyway at Monza, I believe.
A real quick question, because we're talking about drivers, and I know I'm biased here, so I am asking the question. If you were, I mean, we were on about Gasly to Alpine, because we've got these drivers available. If you're looking at Danny Rick now, right now, forgetting his potential that he's had for the last 15 years,
yeah.
If you've got Danny Rick now at the back in that McLaren, and you've got Mick Schumacher back there, and they're both available, and you're Alpine, which one are you taking now? If you're the boss of Alpine and they go, you can have Mick Schumacher or you can have Danny Rick for the next 3 years, which one you having?
You want to go first, John?
I was going to say the same to you. I'm not sure because I don't know. I think Danny Rick has won races at every team he's been at, hasn't he? Regardless of how crap he's had as a season. So if that's what they're looking at and that only, or are they looking at, which will definitely happen, looking at the Schumacher name and thinking, come on, let's make a bit of a go with this lad here. He's got talent. His name's Schumacher. And if he wins in this car, he goes, but there is history, obviously. I don't know. I think Schumacher will go to Williams. I've thought this for a while.
Real quick.
And I think he'll end up in a Merc.
I was just about to say, that is a genuine rumour that they're making moves to try and get, similar to George, to get Mick into Latifi's seat and trial him for like 2 years and really look at the data and be like, can he perform? Because I think they recently said to Lewis that about continuing for 5 years or something, he pulled a lightning, Harry. When he said about pray for Harry. When he said about in continuing for 5 years, Lewis pulled a face like, no, you know what I mean. No. So I do feel like Mercedes, because De Vries is too old now. For me, he's too old to be putting in an F1 car now in a drive. I don't see it happening. And actually,
he's testing this weekend, didn't he?
Toto said he couldn't help him as well.
Wow. It's the same with. Well, I'll just go back to the point you're making.
One sec. Chat. Who would you have, Danny Rick or Mick Schumacher, right now? Looking at Danny Rick's performances, Mick Schumacher's performances. You're the boss of Alpine. You've got to choose one of them. Danny Rick, Mick Schumacher. Gone.
All right, just quickly. So don't forget, Ocon was on the Mercedes driver program, and they released him, and he's not really done a lot. He won a race, yeah, but that was lucky.
It's hard to shine.
It's hard to tell because Danny Rick obviously is in a horrible rut mentally, and which is obviously affecting his performance right now. I think. How many chances do you give him? I'm not. It's really tricky. Who's going to develop the team more? Probably Danny Rick, just purely based on experience. I'd honestly, if I had to gun to my head, I'd probably take Danny Rick, and that's only purely based on what he's done previously. I know you said not to do that, but
no.
If he's got that in him, I feel like what we're seeing now is not a true representation because he's gone.
It's a difficult one because I feel like Danny Rick is one of those people that once you lose him, you've lost him.
Yes.
Yeah, it does seem like that. It does seem like that.
It's very. There's loads of footballers that like it, but once the head's gone, they're just not at the races at all in any way.
And
it's not like your world champions where they can dig themselves out of anything. You can't do that.
Yeah, I mean,
but really, how many seasons do we have on Mick Schumacher? Because the first season has been with Haas for 2 seasons now.
This is his second now. Yeah.
Second season. No, this is his first season to me because that Haas was an absolute dog. And he was against an absolute dog.
Yeah,
so it's like, how can you?
Yeah, us at Silverstone, they were just pootling around on their own at the back. Like, they were miles from anything. And I don't know. I think... I mean, I know I'm biased, but I would hate for Mick not to get a fair crack at it. He's shown flashes this season. Red Bull Ring, in qualifying at Zandvoort. And I think there's more to be had there. And I think he's certainly better than some of those on the grid currently.
I agree.
But... yeah, it was just a question I thought I'd pose. Andy says Mick. Ian says Danny Rick. Dan says it'd risk on Mick. Now, we've got 9 minutes to go. And I thought I would... well, what we'll do, we'll just do a bit of chat about Monza, if that's all right.
Yeah, I think I was going to say, why don't we move the quiz if we do things next week or the weekend?
Yeah.
We'll do it then.
Yeah, no problem. So we'll chat for a few minutes just about Monza.
Can we just quickly chat? Yep. We've not talked about it yet, really quick, about Tsunoda.
And the controversy.
Can you tell me what's gone on there?
So, from my understanding, the controversy around Tsunoda is that now it was very difficult for me to keep track of things because I'm doing the watch along, I'm reading chat, I'm watching it like, what is going on here with him pootling around and. But the chat in here immediately lit up saying, that's for Max, because it timed... I didn't see, and I wasn't looking at the timings, that it worked perfectly for Max to pit and stuff like this. Now, what I will say is, there is precedent for dodgy stuff going on in F1, but what I don't agree with is people, I don't know, I think it's a lady, I don't know her name, but going absolutely off on one at the strategist, Alpha Tauri and stuff like that, and I think it would be above them if something like that was happening, you know what I mean? But that's apparently what happened. Now, there's that. The one that I find sus, and it's not Tsunoda, is the safety car and Bottas. Right?
Suspect.
Yeah. Because, and again, the chat lit up with this, I, again, didn't see the timings. I'm screaming at this camera, where's the safety car? Because we've got a stationary car in the main overtaking spot at the track. And
Sainz nearly hit him.
And Sainz nearly hit him. And it took, like, another lap, at least, for it to come out. And look, I don't care who's winning, who's losing, where anyone is. Safety first. Like, people can go, oh, crashes. No, we don't want a Billy Munger situation or worse. We don't want that, right?
No.
But the chat immediately said that got called as Max was coming round to the pits. And I don't know. And they were saying it would have been timed that everyone else got the SC and he'd have had to have done another circulation, basically.
Yeah.
At the time he stopped. Now, I don't know on the timings on that. But when everyone said it in chat immediately, I was a bit like, oh, like, you know, I couldn't keep up with that. But the Tsunoda thing, they're on about, you know, he parked it in the wrong place. So then he had to go and park it in another place so that...
Yeah.
Well, it's a bit tricky because obviously he's stopped. He's thought the wheel's not been attached, which I'm not sure how they don't know that for a start if they've gone, oh yeah, it's fine. He's obviously taken his belt off or loosened his belt or done something to his belt. Come back around. They've realised that his belt's loose. The tyre was fitted properly probably. And then it's gone back out. It's gone back out again. Tyre's not fitted again properly. Now they can see it in the data. But I think what's happened is they wanted to get going again, but they've had to stop the car because they knew his seatbelt had come off and they couldn't. You can't do that. Once your seatbelt's loose, you're out of the race, unfortunately.
What a mess. How many things did they have to do to try and get him to stop a car?
I don't think that's suspect, to be honest.
No.
But the safety car thing is because it did take forever for the safety car to come out, and it was probably in the worst point on the track into the braking zone of turn one. So.
They're scared shitless of that partisan crowd. That's what it was.
Maybe.
Yeah,
they'd already bought about 2,000 of these special schmuck things which had like the lion on it with Max Verstappen and all the crowds, all the flags and that on their shoulders. That would have all been stuck in a bin if he never won that race.
Lewis could have never won that race, no matter what happened. You know what? It wouldn't happen under Charlie Whiting.
No.
Nah.
Never. None of this would have happened. It's these race directors that are too scared to, especially what happened. Look what happened to Michael Massey. He got absolutely ripped a new one, didn't he? By everybody.
It does seem like the show comes first, doesn't it? That's what seems to be now. The show comes first before actual fundamentals and rules and safety.
Yeah, that's fine for people that,
thunder and outside.
And Netflix watchers, but people that actually look at the sport, the better spectacle would have been a Mercedes winning that race.
Yeah. It would have. It would have been mental.
Yeah.
And I say that being an Alonso, Mick Schumacher-y type
guy.
Monza,
4 minutes of Monza.
But, yeah, the main thing, safety. I don't care who's winning. That safety car is out immediately. Don't mess with it.
Max was outstanding at the end of the day. He's quick and he done a solid job. But why
real quick, because I've got to go in 4 minutes. First question, so we'll go like quick fire. Harry, will Ferrari be contenders at home?
I've heard that Binotto said they're turning the engines up full whack this weekend to be in contention, right? I've heard a couple of rumours and I've seen a couple of people saying it, which means
Banana split.
Which means one thing.
Retiring.
Kaboom.
I love it.
Yeah, they're going to be miles ahead for 3.5 laps.
I can't see any, with the straight line speed that the Red Bulls got, I can't see anyone but Max winning it. So if you've got him in your fantasy, turbo drive him. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Albon for the win.
I tell you what, someone was on about like putting a couple of quid on him for like a silly place within the top 10 sort of thing, because that Williams is rapid in a straight line. It actually is.
All you've got is a couple of corners at Monza on straight lines. So I think the Mercedes will struggle. I think the Ferraris will be quick. I think they will be quick.
Okay, you think? Well, that was my next question. Do you think Mercedes can challenge in Monza? My opinion is no, because they've been talking about a draggy car all season.
I was just looking at the speed traps for Spa. That's one of the quickest speed traps this season. And Russell and Hamilton were 18th and 19th. So
I've heard rumours.
Albon was top of them, by the way. That's why I went with Albon.
More rumour mill is that there's going to be a few engine penalties this weekend.
Oh God!
Including probably a Mercedes and a Ferrari. So, yeah.
Is this good for us? These engine penalties and that, is it good for the spectators?
Only if the championship leader's getting it.
Yeah.
And I don't mean Max. I mean in any season, just before anyone goes mental. If the championship leader's getting it, then it opens up the championship some more. So, last question then. Well, to both of you, 2 minutes. Do you think there's no chance of a surprise winner like Gasly or Ricciardo?
You can never rule it out because
it would be mad. Can you imagine if Albon is the crazy winner?
Seriously, I would go possibly Alonso or Ocon again.
Don't even with Alonso, mate. After the stream today, you don't even go there with Alonso, mate. I'll freak out.
I'm just going to quickly get the odds up. I think it's possible. But it's only possible if something obviously crazy happens. It probably ain't going to rain. So, is anyone a question to Max? Probably not.
Max isn't going to mount a Mercedes this year, is he?
Or a sausage curb.
Or a sausage curb, for that matter. Yeah.
Or both.
Who are we talking about here? Albon,
yeah.
GP outright winner? Surely not.
What?
Albon, where's he gone? 1,000 to 1.
This is not financial advice, but stick a couple of quid on.
1,000 to 1 to win the GP.
I mean, I might put a couple of quid on that. Why not? But
each way.
1,000 to 1.
Gamble
each way is a podium.
Top 4 places. Top 4 places on here.
Well,
Slap
Anyway.
it on.
Let's get it done. Right then, it's basically 8 o'clock. Thank you so much for joining us for our first sort of pod chat on YouTube. Sorry about the audio in the beginning. I'm a complete tool, but that's sorted now.
Robber.
And it will be sorted for the future. Thanks a lot, guys. And we might be back next week. I think we've talked about one for next week, so we might be back next week for another one. I'll try and advertise.
Or Sunday.
Or Sunday. Well, I'm going to be around for the watch-alongs on. I'm going to be around for the watch-alongs on Saturday and Sunday for the Monza Grand Prix. About 30 minutes before qualifying, 30 minutes before the race. I'll be live. Come along, join, have a chat, get involved, and laugh at me while I lose my mind at craziness happening, hopefully. But until then, thanks a lot, guys, and we'll see you soon. Cheers.